We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. Uh-oh, thrift diving.
Hey, what's up? It's Serena Pia from thriftiving.com, which is a podcast, a blog, and a YouTube channel that helps you decorate, improve, and maintain your home with paint, power tools, and thrift stores without sacrificing your budget, the environment, or style. Welcome to episode 90 of the Thrift Diving Podcast. And today we are going to dive into the topic of coziness and what it means to create a cozy home and a cozy life, and how when you're not feeling cozy, it can actually feel so uncomfortable, especially mentally. And I'm going to start this off by telling you that lately I've been feeling so unsettled, and it's hard to put a finger on it, but it's this weird feeling where I'm not content with the things that I used to be content with. Projects have kind of lost their luster, not all of them, but some of them. And I find myself perusing social media more hours than I care to count. We all know how that goes. And I'm constantly checking my phone, looking for distractions to pull me away from the things that I have to do. Work and chores. Yet, if just a week ago, if someone were to say, well, Serena, name that thing. What's causing you to feel unsettled? I couldn't tell them. I just knew it was like going to bed without brushing your teeth, right? Does this ever happen to you? You forget to brush your teeth, or you're just feeling so tired. You don't want to brush or wash your face or do that thing that you know you're supposed to do. And it's like your brain says, hey, psst, you didn't brush your teeth. Don't get too comfortable. You still need to get up and go brush your teeth. And I don't care how sleepy you are, you will be bothered by that thing for the entire night. I don't know if that happens to you, but it happens to me. It's a very unsettling feeling when you know that there's something that you need to do, but you just don't feel like doing it for whatever reason. Your motivation has completely stalled and you feel stuck, but you're not sure what's causing you to be stuck. Now, mental health is a very real thing. It's not something to be taken lightly, but I'm not talking about depression, the kind of mental health challenge where you just don't feel like you can get out of bed. Thankfully, and I've said this on a previous podcast, thankfully I don't have depression. It's a very real condition. And I think for anybody that feels like that, you definitely should get some help. No, this is not the debilitating condition of depression. This is more of like, you just feel unsettled, right? Like things aren't in place. You don't have that motivation. You're up and you're doing things, but it's just not that satisfaction that you used to have. And I think what I'm kind of referring to can almost be described as like a general mental malaise, right? Not feeling 100% emotionally. And, if you feel like this too, sometimes it can be caused by a number of reasons. I mean, it could be family issues, marital issues. Maybe you're worried about money, job stress, indecisiveness, lack of focus. You're not being productive, all these things. Anyhow, the other day I was feeling this really intense urge to go to the library. This was like Friday night, right? Other people are thinking about doing fun things, and I'm thinking, I've got to go to the library before they close. And I love reading. It's something that restores me. When you fall into a good book and you're stealing moments from your day just to catch up on a few more pages. I love that, right? Like going to the bathroom and instead of taking your phone, you're taking your book. And I always tell people the library has been my number one happy place. Only a slight edge over my second favorite place, which is a thrift store. But I love the library and I love the thrift store. Anyway, I went to the library. I had my tote bag and I was ready to fill it with all kinds of books. Romance novels, nonfiction books on beauty. Like I was looking for books on doing my hair, makeup, just all kinds of things. You can find that on Pinterest. But I don't know, I just love books. And it's not that I could read all of these books within the 3 weeks that you're allotted for checkout, but there's nothing like walking out of the library with an armful of knowledge and adventures and getting to pick and choose what you devote your attention to over the next few weeks of your life. I just love it. Well, there's one book that I happened to find. I wasn't looking for it. It just happened to be in the stack of books, and it was called Cozy: The Art of Arranging Yourself in the World by an author named Isabel Gillies. And I believe she may have played on SVU, Special Victims Unit. So she's an author. She's got some other things going on. But I'd never heard of this woman. I'd never heard of the book. And I thought, cozy, that's a great word. That word is a buzzword. We use it to describe everything from the clothes we wear when it's warm and soft and we're snuggling up in our warm jackets in the wintertime, or maybe you're walking through a quaint neighborhood and it looks very expensive and you know it's quaint and expensive and it looks cozy, to, getting that new comforter for your bed when you're doing a makeover, to even like Christmas lights, right? On a cold winter night. These are all the things that we've thought of when we think of cozy. But as I'm leafing through this book, the author was writing about how cozy pencils were. You didn't hear me misspeak. She was talking about pencils. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, is this woman crazy? Like, she's describing them as, quote, familiar, sturdy, dependable tools that live with most of us. And she's talking about the humble pencil is put to good use while making lists and doodles and solving math problems and scoring games and all these ways that she's describing a freaking pencil. And then she talks about describing them physically and how to carry them and how to sharpen them and the different types of lead. And she even shares that there's something called the Pencil Appreciation Society. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, there is a Pencil Appreciation Society where you actually have to apply to become a member. And as I'm just leafing through this book, something about it, though, intrigued me. Like, it was just so ludicrous. Why is this woman writing about pencils? Something that's so mundane, some item that we have in our household. But the way that she was writing it, it felt like poetry to me, and it was soothing, and it was just like an act of being mindful. It was almost therapeutic. And so I took this book, put it in my little pile of books. I said, we're getting this. It seemed like the kind of book that actually put into words the kind of thoughts that I had about life all around me. I mean, I've never thought that deeply about pencils, but when I look out into the world, when I think about my home, when I think about my relationships, sometimes I think about things kind of poetically, and the way that this woman was describing things, I wanted to read more. And I liked the idea that she was describing just ordinary things that are just really ordinary, but she was describing them so extraordinarily cozy. And it started making me think that maybe the way that we see the world around us is actually full of wonder and usefulness and purpose. And so I couldn't wait to come home and get settled into my cozy bed. It was cozy, and just read this book. This is the book that I needed. So I brought it home, and everybody was downstairs. I was going to go upstairs, snuggle underneath the blankets to really get cozy and just lose myself in this book. And she starts talking about building the case for coziness as it relates to connectedness, right? And looking inward into who you are. Like, for example, with the pencil, right? Even though this is like a mundane item that really, we've never really thought that much about a pencil, but the way that she was describing it, it's like this universal tool that we all use. It cuts across customs, traditions, backgrounds, political parties. Like, it's this thing that we all use that all connects us, right? So that's how she describes coziness. It's this cozy thing that we can all identify with. And she talks about cozy feeling grounded, like something that makes you feel grounded and sound. And she says, quote, tuning in, as in connecting to what's going on around you. This is how you get to cozy. And I was just so interested in this. So I actually opened up my little notes pad on my phone and started taking notes, because I like the way that she described some things. She talked about cozy is connecting intimately to humanity. And sometimes it can be things that you don't even think of as being cozy. In fact, she used this example of one night she's trying to train this puppy. She lives in New York City. She's trying to train this puppy, and she's out in the bitter cold. This puppy can't quite figure out, like, hey, I'm supposed to go to the bathroom here. And she would ask herself in these situations, like, okay, where's the cozy factor in this? And she started thinking of all the things that people were doing around her, right? Like, there was people inside getting ready for bed. There was people who were sitting at the table helping their kids with homework, and there was people driving cabs, and there's all this humanity going on around her that she was able to stop for a moment and just connect with all of the things that people were doing in the world at that very moment when she was trying to train this puppy. And I don't know, it just made her feel cozy, and I could just identify with that. I don't know. Maybe, hopefully this is making sense to you. I am going to tell you that you have to read the book. You can find the link down below in the show notes. But it's about connecting intimately with humanity, like with what other people are going through, what they're doing at the same time. It really feels like mindfulness. And she talks about how it's about nostalgia, right? How somebody took care of you when you were young. That brings up memories of coziness when you're driving along in the car and you fell asleep and you woke up and maybe there was a coat on you, keeping you warm and safe. Cozy is about filling your life and your home with the things and the experiences that also connect you to your roots, to other people, to your authentic self, and to the things that make you feel safe and secure and loved. And so as I'm reading this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. So it wasn't just the ideas that she was putting out there and making you think differently about the world, but it was also the way that she wrote too. It was very poetic. And I just fell into this book and really started looking at the world around me a little differently, even in my own home, thinking about the items that I'm bringing into my home. Like we talked about this in a previous episode about loving your home. And, when I think about loving my home, maybe it's a different way of looking at it, but it's really about creating a cozy home with those things that actually matter to you, right? So she talks about the traditions that you have for your family, or maybe you come from a certain part of the world where you have certain items that just make you feel connected to your people, right? I mean, it could be, I think there was some things that she was talking about. She had traveled to, I think it was Morocco, and there were some things that she brought back that she loved, and I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's this item of clothing that she loved, and she bought one and would pull it out and wanted to wear it outside, but she said, that's not really my identity. I loved it. I felt connected to it because of my trip, but this was not part of my roots. But it was part of her experience. So she would pull it out and she would love it and just enjoy it. But, if you are from, let's say, a place in the world, and it doesn't have to be somewhere internationally, it can be from Iowa, it can be from California, wherever it is that you're from, pulling some of who you are into your home, making it feel like that is your authentic self, that you are paying homage to where you came from. So anyway, when I was reading this book, I finally understood that the reason that I haven't been feeling 100% emotionally okay, it's because I feel like parts of my life have been lacking coziness. More pointedly, I would say my life has been lacking that connection to my authentic self. And I mean, not in all areas, but in some areas, and those connections that are there, I wasn't really observing them. So for example, my authentic self's purpose, I've told you this, it's to create, inspire, and teach. Those are the 3 pillars of my life. Those are the 3 pillars of thrift diving. And if you haven't come up with your own pillars of what your life's purpose is, I highly, highly recommend you to sit down and just think, what are the 3 things the 3 words that signify what my life is about? The 3 things that make me feel alive, that make me have purpose. Well, for me, it's create, inspire, and teach. And I sure as heck don't feel like I've been doing very many of those things lately. So like while I am working on projects, like for example, right now I am just finishing up my vinyl plank flooring in my she shed. I finished that up. I'm actually finishing up the baseboards. I just have to do the nail holes and paint the baseboards. But I'm moving at the speed of like a turtle drudging through a pool of molasses. I mean, that's what it feels like. I feel like I'm moving so slowly because I'm unmotivated. I feel unfocused. I'm feeling wasteful with my time. There's some days when I don't even start really working till 1 p.m. And if you ask me, well, what are you doing from like 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.? I don't know. I mean, I do go for a run. I have breakfast and do my puzzle. I'm working on this amazing 2,000-piece puzzle right now. I love it. And when I'm done with that, I can't tell you what I do from like 10 to 1. I waste time. So I'm feeling wasteful with my time. And I'm wondering if anything that I'm doing, sometimes I wonder, is this really important to anybody but me? Am I even really being creative enough to even post anything? And I wonder, as I'm considering my lack of speed, sometimes I think about this too, that if I move slow, because I'm simply enjoying the coziness of my work and enjoying like listening to the Golden Girls. I usually stream that on Hulu, and it's very soothing when I am working at a slow pace and I have the Golden Girls on and I've got all this light filling my she shed, and it just makes me feel happy. But I don't know, sometimes I feel like I should be moving quicker. I feel like I should be doing more than what I'm doing. And, even with being on social media and sending emails and stuff, sometimes I don't even feel, lately I feel like that I don't even want to be in the spotlight. So I've kind of retreated to the shadows, and I'll go on social media. I kind of lurk, but I've not really been wanting to be front and center for anyone. It's almost like I've been wanting to kind of take time off to just be quiet and just, I don't know if it's just taking a break where you're just rejuvenating yourself, or I don't know, enjoying that coziness. Anyway, I don't post YouTube videos that often. And sometimes the time in between when I'm posting videos, it's so far and few that people forget that they've even subscribed. There was one video I posted, I think it might've been the last video I posted maybe 3 weeks ago. And someone's like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm so glad to get this notification. I totally forgot that I even subscribed to you. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's horrible. Like, I got to do better. And with emails, I rarely send emails to subscribers because, if I'm moving so slowly on new content, if there is no new email, then I kind of feel like I don't have anything to put out there. And when I do send emails when there's a new project, people that have subscribed, they're like, yeah, who is this? I got to delete this or unsubscribe. I don't know why I'm getting this. And then blog posts. Oh my gosh. What is that? I can't remember the last time that I wrote a proper tutorial with tons of useful information for just the everyday DIYer that comes to my blog. I mean, I have written some posts, but there's times when I've written like 4,000 word posts and I put as much information in there and it's just a great post, but I haven't done it lately. And I think what it was is being a content creator wasn't feeling cozy anymore. It felt like a chore. And I shied away from it, and I continued to work on my projects, sometimes begrudgingly because I had to do it because, I had to pull out a camera, had to continue doing things. This is what I do full time. And, I just want you to understand that I've never wanted to have another career other than being a blogger and a YouTuber, even before I even knew that that was a career that even existed. But I knew that I wanted to be something creative. And I absolutely flourished in front of the camera. It was just what I did very well. But it wasn't until I was nearly 40 years old that I knew that being a content creator was even a real career. I simply enjoyed creating something unique, sharing it with people about how I achieved it or what went wrong or how I fixed it. And then once I was done, I was so eager to move on to the next project. And it didn't matter that I was a 9-to-5 employee outside of the home, that I had 3 young kids, that I had a busy lifestyle. I couldn't wait to get started on that next project. But I think the gleam had worn off and I couldn't put my finger on why. I couldn't verbalize what it was and why it felt off. And I think it was this book that finally made me realize that what had happened was I had stopped feeling cozy and started focusing more on earning a living. In fact, when you earn a living from your passion, I don't care what it is. It could be photography, painting, cooking, any of those things. Like, yes, you're blessed to do what you love, but it does start to feel like work. And you don't have time to feel cozy anymore because it's not a hobby. It's your family's well-being that's dependent on you churning a profit. Like, you have to do this. So, back years before, writing blog posts used to feel so cozy. I'd have this big cup of tea and I would have maybe a whole afternoon to write uninterrupted. This was probably, I would say, more so when I had first lost my job. That was 2015 and before that. And, of course, after 2015. But up to that time, I'd have this whole afternoon to write. And I would write it up in detail about how I did this and turned this project into that. And it was amazing. And I was so full of pride that I was able to create this project, right? Sometimes I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. And there was some bad decisions, but somehow I figured out how to pull through to the end with a final reveal that left readers like, oh my gosh, you did a great job. And I love that. I felt like we were a community, that we were friends. And there was a pride and I think a connectedness in those posts and the whole experience from, that first coat of paint to cutting the first piece of wood to when I would finish writing the blog post and I would put my final signature of my name to the bottom of the blog post. It was just a great experience. But I think over time, it was replaced by, well, now you've taken 150 pictures of this project. Now you got to go in there and rename them all. And of course, you got to make sure you have the proper keywords, because if you're writing a blog post and it doesn't have that keyword, guess what? It might not come up in search. And you have to format it properly because Google likes to see certain things in order for you to be featured as a snippet in search. There was all these things that you started doing because you had to. And I think that cozy, connected feeling that I had to my work, to the why of why I was doing my work and to my authentic self, it started to feel disconnected. And I started to do more of what mattered to Google and more of what mattered to brands that had these deadlines that you had to hurry up and get the stuff in. And the more my why ended up having a dollar sign and not because I enjoyed it and it was cozy. And I don't think the quality of my content changed, but I think the coziness behind it started to seep out of the projects. And then it just became, well, here's a checklist of everything you have to do in order to try to go viral. And so the coziness was something over time that I kind of lost. And it was gradual. And at that time, I think years before, it was barely noticeable, but I started to feel it a long time ago. And I think only recently, maybe in the last year or so, because I think you may have heard me talk about this a little bit here and there, but it wasn't until I read this book that I realized it's the cozy factor that really started to leave some of my work. So where I wasn't setting up my environment to be this cozy thing. And it just became, oh, I've got to grow and I've got to dominate and I've got to do all this. I mean, think about it. Anytime you listen to any sort of productivity book, like audiobook, or if you go onto social media, maybe you follow Gary Vee. He's this business guru, this motivator. And if you listen to any of the stuff that he puts out, it's drilled into your head, like in these little 15-second sound bites, that you've got to be producing 10x. You've got to outperform your competition. You can't sleep. You got to hit 1 million this and 1 million that. And if you're not putting a video up on TikTok every day, you're failing. Or if you're not doing YouTube shorts, you're irrelevant. And there are so many messages in your feed and in your face telling you that you're not good enough, that you're not doing enough, that you feel that you have this friction inside of you between wanting to be cozy and connected and comfortable at a pace that feels comfortable for you versus feeling like a failure because you're not moving fast enough. I mean, I'm going to repeat that again because I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying that. There are so many messages telling you that you can't be cozy and comfortable. You have to be 10xing it. You have to move quickly, because if you're not moving quickly enough, you're going to fall behind. You're going to fail. And I want you to think about the things in your life that make you feel like you're a failure, right? Is it because maybe you want A and B, but somebody or something's telling you, no, you got to have C and D. And so this friction that is this dissonance between what you want and what you feel you have to do is creating this unsettled feeling inside of you. And this message of do more that's not what's resonating inside of me. That's where the uncertainty is coming from. And you might be having that dissonance too, because maybe you don't want to do more. Maybe you don't care. Like for me, I don't care if I reach 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I don't care. I don't care if my email list is 100,000. I really don't care. What I care about is that I get to create the cozy work-life atmosphere that makes me feel like I made a difference in your life. When I look at this book and see all the things that she's talking about and how she describes just being cozy and connected and what makes you feel secure and happy, I don't know. It was almost like a sun rising in the morning and the fog was just dissipating because I felt that uneasiness starting to dissipate as I read that. And actually, as I'm talking about this, as I was thinking about this, even before I even push record, in this book, like I said, it's requiring you to think about the connectedness that we feel to others. And I started thinking about my content a little differently too. So here's how I started imagining things. So I started imagining that you, okay, dear listener, or if you're a blog reader, or maybe you like to watch my YouTube channel, I imagine you sitting with a hot cup of tea. And just imagine it's a long, hard day of work, and you open up your email and you see that there's a new project from Serena, thrift diving. And it might have been 2 weeks, but it finally arrived in your inbox or in your notifications. And you're excited to see the new things that I've been up to because, you don't have much time for DIY, but you kind of enjoy living vicariously through my projects because it does inspire you and it motivates you. So you open the email and you see that I've made something that you've been wanting to try, or you've been thinking about it for years, but you didn't know if you had time to do it, or you didn't even think that you could do it. But here I am trying it and telling you how to do it. So you click it to read the blog post or to watch that YouTube video. And you've got the lights turned low in your bedroom and you're sipping your cup of tea and you're ready to click and get comfortable and watch the video. You've had that long, hard day of work and you're physically and mentally tired. And my voice, which crazy enough, seems to soothe you. It appears on your screen and I'm smiling at you. And it feels like I'm smiling just for you. And I'm walking you through how I did this project. And then after watching for a while, you decide, you know what, I think I want to do this later down the road, but not now. I'm just going to enjoy watching her and I'm just going to enjoy listening to her because it feels like I'm keeping you company, right? I'm helping you unwind at the end of the day. And you're inviting me into your home. I'm in bed with you and I'm spending time with you in the evening like we're old friends. And you feel less alone and less anxious after your long day. So then you leave a comment and you find that, wait a minute, Serena just responded back to say that she appreciates the time it took to watch the video and to comment and to wish me good luck on my own projects. So while you're still tired, guess what? You're in a less foul mood and you feel less lonely because we just had a connection. Yes, it was a connection over the internet, but it was a connection. That is the scenario that this book, Cozy, taught me to envision, the connectedness between you and I, the cozy feeling that went into creating the video that would soothe you, that would make you laugh, bring you joy in your evening when maybe you just had a really tough day or you're feeling lonely. So I want you to think about the things that you do in your life that you never really thought too much about. Maybe sometimes it just feels like a chore. It could be cooking dinner for your kids. And you get home and you're just like, oh gosh, I have to cook meals for them. I just want to go sit down. I don't feel like hear them bickering. But when you change your thought pattern about that and you think, wow, I get to come home and actually see my kids who are alive and healthy and cook them a meal that's going to help their body to grow. And I'm creating a warm, cozy environment in the kitchen with the smell of the food going. And then we're going to sit down and maybe we're not at the dining room table. Maybe we're all in the living room watching TV, watching a movie while we eat, but we're together as a family. Like those kind of things, if we think about the things that we do and the things that we create and how it's making other people feel cozy and secure and feeling good, then maybe we can actually start to appreciate some of these things that we do that sometimes feels like work. And we have kind of lost sight of how important these things are that we're doing because it connects us to other people. It creates coziness in their life. So anyway, when I think about that scenario that I just laid out for you, it inspires me to actually pull out my camera and share with you what's in my heart and the projects that I'm excited to do and the pride I feel at completing them and just knowing that you're on the other end to receive it and it's creating this cozy connection between us. It just reminds me that you are my why. So I think that's the coziness that's been missing from my work and from my life. And I think it's been causing me some anxiety and hesitation. But I feel like now that I've identified it, I'm mindful of it, I can actually allow myself to give into it, to, give into just wanting to create this cozy environment, regardless of the pressures to overperform and hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube or trying to keep up with the quote unquote Joneses, which in this case is not the people next door. It's actually other content creators. And I think the reason why I love doing my podcast so much, and that's why I show up every single week, is because this podcast feels cozy. It's just you and me connecting via a microphone. And I'm able to share my thoughts and feelings, ideas, advice, tutorials, like all these things that I love to share with you that I don't feel that I can necessarily share in a blog post, and maybe not even on a YouTube channel. I mean, because it is kind of a lifestyle thing. I mean, it relates to the home, but I think it just relates to your life in general. And whether you're listening right now, whether you're driving, gardening, doing laundry, it's just me talking to you, girlfriend to girlfriend, or girlfriend to guy friend, if you're a guy who's listening. And I think that's pretty cozy. Anyway, the author had said, and I took notes on this. This is one line that I love. She said, "In learning how to be cozy, you are responsible for taking what happens to you, learning from it, and then connecting it to your innermost self." And I think my innermost self, as I mentioned before, is creating, inspiring, and teaching. So if we can always take the things that happen around us and relate it to those things that are innermost important to you, then I think we'll be happier all around. So now in this book, she does have a little section where she's talking about coziness for the home. So I thought I would just share a few of the tips that she had actually asked designers. And I think they're pretty general, but I just wanted to share them with you since she did have that section in the book. So she had asked a few decorators, and some of the things that came up were like the colors used in the home. There's one designer, I don't know any of these designers, but his name is Nathan Turner. And he said that the color blue was cozy because it reminded him of this deep navy blue that you would see when you go to like Northern California and Maine. And I guess his house was, well, he was very lucky, but his childhood home actually overlooked the ocean and you could just see this color. So anything that was like blue and gray, because the fog would come in over the water, he would find these colors to be very soothing and very cozy. And so he would find that a lot of his decorations in his home would mimic these colors. So again, you see that theme of, what is it about your childhood that maybe you can implement some of those things, those memories, some of that nostalgia into what you have going on in your home. There was another guy who, I think this actually might be the partner to Nathan. He said, and I think his name is Eric Hughes. He's also a designer, and he said that anything handmade, those things are very cozy. So anything that you can find on Etsy and eBay, there's this huge explosion in it. I mean, I think it's always been an explosion, but he said there's this huge explosion of all things handmade. And I think when you bring those handmade things into your home, of course, here at Thrift Diving, and you're listening to this, I'm sure you've got a lot of handmade things, whether it's painted furniture or something you got from the thrift store, and maybe you added some handles to it or whatever. It does make your home feel cozy because you're expressing yourself and you're putting those things out there for the world or for your visitors to see so you can feel more comfortable in your home. I don't know if I really agree with this next one. A designer, his name is Miles Red. He said that anything straw is cozy. So straw baskets, straw rugs, straw waste baskets. I don't know. I'm not really that crazy about straw, but he also said he loves trays. And as I was reading this, I was like, he's really right, because anytime you organize any kind of clutter with trays, it looks clean and intentional. So you can never have too many. And I thought, I really could use some trays like in my master bathroom. I tend to leave a lot of things on the counter and on the vanity. Things are not, I might even take screws out of my pockets and put screws, or maybe, I don't know, like a box cutter, whatever. Seriously, these things are just lying around in my vanity. But if I actually had a neat, organized place to store them, it would look a little bit neater. A couple other things. They mentioned cozy blankets, of course, dimmers on your lights. and having a cozy room with low lighting, kind of go for 30-watt bulbs. That'll make your space feel nice and warm and cozy. And the last one was having some sort of bar, right? So, if you have people coming over to your home, you've got this inviting space with, maybe you've got some sort of like alcoholic drinks or wine or whatever. And that's kind of cozy. But literally anything can make your house feel cozy. It's really about what you feel is cozy, not what a designer says. But I think for me, the most important thing that makes my house feel cozy is lots of sunlight. Oh my gosh, I cannot get too much sunlight. When I feel that my home is light and bright and airy and spacious, which is rare, because if you've heard me talk about my house before, my house used to look like a dungeon. Oh my gosh, but that's a whole other episode. I'll probably leave a link down below where you can hear about that. But I don't have a light, bright, airy home. And I think that's why I love my she shed so much. Last year, for those of you who are regular listeners, last year, mid-September, October, I had a 16 by 26 she shed built in my backyard. And I intentionally put 4 skylights, 6 windows, and the doors are full panel glass. Because even on the cloudiest day, guess what? It's so bright in there and it feels good. When I walk in and I see how much light is in there, it feels wonderful. It feels cozy. It feels like, I could live in here. And I think I get that from my mom. My mom is also someone who loves light. And, any home that we lived in when I was a kid, we don't have just one childhood home, but any home that we lived in, it always had a lot of sunlight. And there was one home she lived in, I would say probably about 6 years ago. It did not have any sunlight. And she was so depressed in there. I mean, it was a townhome. It was an N unit, which was very weird because normally N units have a lot of sunlight, right? Like you can have windows on the side, but for some reason it didn't have any windows on the side. So you had to turn the lights on during the day just to get any sort of like, oh, it's daytime outside. Oh, okay. That's what we're doing. Yeah. So I get that from her and I just cannot get enough of sunlight. So if I were to ever sell my home, I would have to buy something that gets a lot of sunlight. You can't have any trees nearby. Maybe you'd have a lot of curtains and shades or light filtering curtains. In fact, in my she shed, I put up some light filtering skylight blinds just because there was so much sun coming in, but it filters it into this nice, beautiful glow and it keeps out the hottest part of the sun, but still allows it to feel light and airy in there. And I just cannot wait to get in there. I've got this table that I'm going to put my puzzles on because right now I've got my puzzles in the dining room. My dining room is not light and bright, but my she shed is. And so in the morning, I imagine I'll take my bowl of oatmeal out there and work on my puzzle for about an hour in the morning and just enjoy listening to the Golden Girls or podcasts or whatever it is that I listen to in the morning. But now I want you to think about what makes you feel cozy. What are the traditions and the meaningful nostalgia that you want to fill your home with? And not just for your home, but just for your life. What are those things that make you feel secure and safe and comforting and happy? So that if you're walking around like me, feeling a little unsettled or you're not really satisfied with anything kind of going on in your life, think about, well, 2 things. Think about, are you actually being cozy? Are you thinking about it in such a way that you're able to connect that experience with how you are making life cozy for other people? Because like I said, when I could think about the coziness that you might be feeling and listening to this, or, as you're snuggled in your bed, looking at my videos, it actually makes me feel less unsettled because I know that what I'm doing is meaningful. So can you find some meaning and connectedness in the things that you're doing that might feel like a chore? So that now it doesn't have to feel like a chore. Now you can find the coziness in it, the joy and the connectivity with other people so that you can be happier and that you can be more content. And if you're kind of struggling with this, maybe get a journal and do some journaling. I've been doing a lot of journaling lately, and I feel it's such a powerful tool to just open up to yourself and admit the things to yourself that maybe you can't admit to anybody else. And really just be honest with what is going to make you happy. What are those cozy things that you need that maybe you're not getting? And maybe there's some changes that you have to make in your life. And I think for me going forward, what I'm going to do, and this is one of the reasons why I can't wait to have my shed just be done, if it'll ever be done, is to create that cozy environment that makes me want to sit down and write blog posts, right? So maybe it's having a coffee maker or tea machine or something in my shed so that I can come in and have this ritual of sitting down to, maybe listen to the Golden Girls as I'm writing my blog posts, because I love the Golden Girls, and just creating that environment that feels cozy and maybe not rushing through the blog posts or, instead of saying, okay, Google wants me to do this, so let me check off this box. Maybe saying, you know what, screw you, Google. I know that you want me to write this a certain way, but I'm going to write what I want to write. And if it doesn't check all of your boxes, well, you know what? I don't care, because at the end of the day, if people like what I put out, it's going to be successful, regardless of whether you're there to put your stamp of approval on it. You know what I'm saying? So think about what's going to make you happy. Create some routines that feel cozy and feel good to you so that you look forward to doing them. And think about your projects. If you're having a hard time creating time for yourself, like let's say on the weekends with doing your projects, maybe you need to create some coziness around your projects. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you need to have a corner in your crafting room that's just for knitting, for example. Oh, speaking of which, I just bought some yarn yesterday. I'm super excited to do this wrap. Several years ago, I did this really beautiful, I don't even know what kind of yarn it was. I think it's like a cashmere blend. It was very expensive, but I did this beautiful wrap, and I finally got to the yarn store and bought like 8 skeins of this really pretty red wool blend, and I'm starting a new wrap. Last night I started on it and it just did not go very well because the instructions were telling me to do like a crochet. I think it was called like a crochet cast on provisional. And I didn't know what that was. So I had to look that up, and I'm watching tutorials on how to do that. And then you have to pick up the stitches, and I'd never done that before. So I wasted about an hour and a half trying to figure it out. But whatever it is that you're wanting to do, set up a little cozy area where you can do your knitting or your sewing and create those routines that make you feel like you want to experience that coziness while you're doing it. And think about what it means for the person who could be on the receiving end of what it is that you're doing, especially if it's something that you're not looking forward to. All right, guys, that's what I have for you this week. I want to know from you, what makes you feel cozy, and what are some of the things that you might do differently now that you've heard this episode? Send me an email, serena@thriftdiving.com. You can find me on Instagram @thriftdiving. Remember, I am putting together a Power Tools course. Believe me, I'm trying. I am working on it very slowly, as I mentioned, but I just need to devote a little bit more time to it. But if you want to sign up to get a notice or an alert when that's available, go to thriftdiving.com/tools to sign up. So you'll be the first to hear when it's available. And come back next week, because we'll always be here talking about something related to our home and our life. All right, guys, I will see you next episode.
Diving. Find it ugly, make it pretty. Paint a power tools, alright. Saving money with those thrift store vibes. Yeah, thrift diving. Find it